Hi, I'm Shelley Wood, and this is my tiny sewing room where I make doll clothes sewing videos. Today I'm going to show you how to sew this little white pinafore, which can also be worn as a dress by itself. It will fit the 9-inch Strawberry Shortcake dolls, 10-inch Rainbow High dolls, and then any other dolls with a similar body shape and size. But before we begin, please go to my website, shelleywood.com, to download this free printable PDF sewing pattern. Use the pattern to cut out all the pieces shown here. Now, I cut a swatch of lace to go under my skirt as a petticoat, but this is optional. You don't have to cut lace. You could also use tulle instead of lace or just skip this step altogether. For your information though, my lace has one straight edge and then one scalloped edge. If you choose not to add lace to your dress, these directions will still make perfect sense. Begin by laying one bodice front on top of another, keeping right sides together. Sew a U shape at the neckline. Now I'm using brown thread so that you can see my stitches really easily in the tutorial, but I recommend that you use thread of a matching color, in this case white. Next, sew around the underarm areas on both sides of your garment and clip these seams like you see me doing right here. Of course, when you clip, you want to be careful that you do not actually cut the seam itself, so you don't want to cut through the thread. Lay one bodice back on top of another bodice back, keeping right sides together, pretty side touching the pretty side. Sew the neck and back closure areas, and then sew along the sleeve opening just like you did with the bodice front. Here's how it looks from the other side, from the printed fabric side. Follow these directions for both of your backs. Clip seams and corners like you see me doing right here. And again, be very careful not to cross the stitching as you go. And then you want to clip that corner off right there. Invert both of your back pieces plus the front piece. Now I like to use a chopstick to help me invert, and you're going to want to give it a little twist when you're trying to get that strap through. See how I'm twisting the chopstick? That really helps to get that shoulder strap to push through. Press all the seams you've created so far on both the back and the front pieces of the bodice. Lay one of the backs on top of the bodice front, keeping right sides together so my printed fabric touches printed fabric. Stitch across the shoulder area. Now I'm using a backstitch for this. Lay the other back on top of the front just like you did with the other one, and stitch this shoulder strap together also. Open your bodice up like this and press the shoulder seams. Okay, now remember those notches that were at the sides? We're going to open one back and its corresponding front to join these notches together like you see me doing in this video. This one isn't as fast because I want you to notice where we're going with this. So I open up a back that's been sewn together. I just open it up and then I open up the front and then I align those notches. And that's where I know to sew. We're going to stitch across this side seam. Now I'm using a back stitch for this with needle and thread. Do this on both sides of the bodice so you have two side seams done. Now when you fold these back down, your bodice will look like this. And here I am folding those down like I just said. It helps to give a little tug to the back piece on both sides. That kind of helps to align the stitching underneath a little bit. And then we want it right side out so that your printed fabric is showing. Let's set the bodice aside for a moment so we can work with the skirt for a little while. Along the long side of the skirt fabric, fold your fabric once and then a second time, and we're going to create a hem here. I'm using a whip stitch to hem, but of course you could use a sewing machine for the hem. Here's a close look at my whip stitches. Here's a quick look at the whole hemmed skirt. Now, as I've said, adding lace, a little lace petticoat, is optional, but if you wish to add lace, you're going to baste it to the skirt along the raw fabric edge opposite of the hem. Baste it to the underside or wrong side of the skirt and gather your skirt, leaving 1.5 centimeters of ungathered fabric on both sides of the skirt. This is very important. It will come into play later. Your gather stitches should run just under the based stitch. Do not tie a knot at the end of your gathers either. Instead, with your gather thread still attached, you're going to want to pin the gathered skirt to the front of the bodice. Now, to do this, you must separate the bodice lining from the printed fabric front and hold the garment open. Make sure your straight pins are handy. And secure only the gathered part of the skirt to just the bodice front, not the bodice lining. Sew the skirt to the bodice front, again, not the lining, removing the straight pins as you go. Once you've completely attached the skirt, you're safe to knot the gathers and cut that thread. Remember how you were supposed to only sew the gathered part of the skirt to the bodice? If you did so, you'll have 1.5 centimeters of extra fabric on either side of the dress's skirt. And we're going to work with that next. Fold this overhanging fabric once and then a second time, and we're going to create a hem here at the sides of the skirt. Use a whip stitch to hem a back closure that goes all the way from literally from the bodice to the bottom of the skirt. Do this on both sides of your skirt. Now we still need to close off the bodice lining. Fold it over the gathers, enclosing them completely. And I'm going to show you how I did this. So we've only sewn the skirt to the bodice front, not the lining. So we're going to take that lining and fold it under and attach it right along where those gathers are. Use a whip stitch to close off the raw bodice edge. Here's a closer look at what I've got. And now your dress or pinafore is nearly complete. Add a strip of Velcro as a closure, or you could just use a row of snaps for your closure. And now you're ready to try it on your doll. To make a longer pajama style nightgown, use the same pattern but choose the longer skirt. And I recommend that you use flannel fabric for a nightgown instead of cotton. For more free, printable PDF sewing patterns for making doll clothes for dolls of many shapes and all different sizes, please remember to visit my website, shelleywood.com. Have you ever thought of a brilliant idea for making doll clothes, but you just didn't know enough about how to design your own patterns? I'm Shelley Wood, the doll clothing designer, and I have a real gift for designing doll clothes that I'd like to share with you. In my Creative Spark class, How to Alter Doll Clothes Patterns, I'll introduce you to the basics of doll clothes pattern designs. You will learn how to alter patterns that you already own, how to lengthen and shorten a pants pattern, and how to turn pants into shorts. You'll also learn how to make a skirt more full or less full, and how the fullness of a dress's skirt can affect the fit of a bodice. You'll learn how to design your own waistband for skirts using your doll's measurements. But the real gem of my class is my resizing formula. And trust me, you don't have to be a math whiz to learn how to resize your doll clothes patterns. My formula can be used to make your patterns larger or smaller, depending on what you need. Whether you want to save money on the cost of buying commercial doll clothes patterns, or maybe you're sewing for a doll that you just can't find any patterns for. How to alter doll clothes patterns will help you design a wardrobe that will fit dolls of any shape or size.